Disclaimer, this script isn't meant to be a better version of the original script for the Mortal Kombat 1 DLC story mode. I only view this script as a personal opinion of how I think the story should have gone. I mean no ill will towards the writers of the DLC story mode. When the DLC was announced 2 months ago, many people, including myself, were excited to see what NRS would do with the DLC story mode focused on Bi-Han with his Lin Kuei and Titan Havoc with his plan for Chaos. But then, when the DLC finally came out, people were disappointed to say the least. Some people were displeased with the way Bi-Han / Noob Saibot's character was handled. There was the weird power scaling, and most importantly, the length of the story mode. It was only roughly an hour and 35 minutes long. It might not sound too bad at first, but keep in mind that the DLC costs $60. I understand that there are other things offered via gameplay and skills, but that is just way too high of a price. As for what I disliked about this DLC, it's probably the same reasons I stated previously, as well as Kuai Liang acting a little bit too much like a jerk, Liu Kang having weird morals on keeping Havoc alive, Smoke just not being in the story at all, and the lack of an ending. I know that the arcade endings exist, but it felt like the story mode ended abruptly during the end of the final boss. There's also some mini issues that people have that I either feel iffy on or I'm not sure how to rewrite the story to fix it. When the first teaser came out and we got a look at Cyrax and Sector, a lot of people were upset that they were gender bent. I'm not sure how to feel about this or if I should change it or not, so I decided that for this script rewrite, you can just imagine them as any kind of gender. I will keep the romance between Sector and Cyrax, but it shouldn't really matter what gender Sector is, since MK1 already has Tanya and Melina, so having another LGBTQ+ relationship shouldn't be an issue to them unless their interpretations for having those relationships were insincere. Since the gender is up for interpretation, I will be referring to Sector and Cyrax as they/them. Titan Havoc's whole shtick is that he wants to bring chaos to the realms, and his character is just so ding-dang chaotic. But some people felt that he wasn't chaotic enough, or that NRS missed the whole point of it. I'm gonna try to fix this, but to be honest, I don't even know how a chaotic person would act. But I'll try my best. Titan Havoc also disappears in the ending. We don't know if he's dead or imprisoned. I'm not sure if NRS is going to bring him back for the next game or DLC. I feel like they might bring him back to be a side villain for someone. That is why I'll create 2 different endings to match with this uncertainness. Alright, here are my goals for the story. I want to make the DLC longer so it's actually worth paying $60 for it. Finally turn Bi-Han into a good guy or at least an anti-hero. Fix the ending and add an epilogue. Tweak certain characters' motives, and finally, add more chaos! There isn't much I would change in the beginning when Cyrax and Sector are training and Bi-Han tells them about his plan to sabotage Kuai Liang's wedding. The only thing that I want to change that is sort of relevant here, but more relevant in the ending, is the relationship between Bi-Han and Sector. During this DLC, there were a lot of married couples. There was Kuai Liang and Harumi, Rain and Tanya, Reiko and Li Mei, and Sindel and Shao Kahn. I feel like with all these healthy relationships, it would be a pretty nice contrast if Bi-Han and Sector had a toxic relationship, or at least break up during this DLC, but around the very end. Later at the end, I will go in more depth about how and why the breakup happens, since as of now, we're just getting introduced to Sector. Then, during the wedding scene plus fight, I would give Harumi a bit more strength. She was kind of defeated easily, and I feel like she deserves to do more cool moves since she is one of the founders of the Shirai Ryu. Before I go over the lie reveal part of this scene, I want to change Bi-Han's lie about his father. We know that he killed his father because Bi-Han believed that he was a weak grandmaster. But what if he was lying about that too? I would add another lie to Bi-Han's lie. This lie is that he didn't kill his father because he was weak, but he killed his father because he was abusive to him and his mother. I'm including his mother because it seems that in the intro dialogues, he favors his mother over his father, and this change would fit into that. The only person who he would tell this truth to is Sector because they're his partner, so Bi-han probably trusts them a lot. He wouldn't tell anyone else about this because of these two possible reasons. Either his father had a great reputation and nobody would believe him if he told his clan, or the clan would view Bi-han as sensitive because they might chalk up his abuse as tough love or try to make Bi-han stronger. Still, when Kuai Liang tells Cyrax that Bi-han was lying about killing his father, it's technically true, but the actual truth will get revealed later on in the story mode. I get why Kuai Liang is mad at Cyrax, but he was pretty cruel to them for not knowing, especially since he and Smoke just left without saying anything. I'm also surprised he didn't tell the Lin Kuei about Bi-han's lie to get some of the Lin Kuei to convert over to the Shirai Ryu. I'll let Kuai Liang keep his anger here, since technically they almost killed Harumi and absolutely ruined their wedding day. But instead of Harumi being the only one to reason with him, Smoke would also do that too. Then to the scene where Melina and Liu Kang decide Bi-han and Sector's punishment for their crimes. Melina mentions giving mercy to Shao Kahn and Reiko during one of her arguments on why Bi-han and Sector should be executed. I feel like either Liu Kang or Katana could mention Rain and how he was bad, but then he felt remorse for his actions and turned himself in. If they had captured him and killed him when he was still evil, then he would have never had the opportunity to change for the better. I also wouldn't have Sector and Bi-han, especially Bi-han, looking so angry and ticked off. If they were smart, then they would want to look sympathetic to get out of an execution sentence. Although maybe Bi-han's ego gets in the way. Now Havoc's here with his silly goobers. Time to do the tricky thing and make his character more chaotic. To start things off, when he's monologuing about he's gonna make all the different timelines fight each other, maybe he could switch about talking about it in a vile way and then to a more remorseful way. I also want to change how Havoc reveals that he needs Geras because directly pointing at him was a bit too obvious, and he didn't need to outright tell Liu Kang that. Havoc would still be monologuing and talking about how he needs Geras' help to make this plan a possibility. He wouldn't outright say his name, so Liu Kang would think Havoc is talking to him, but before he can respond, Havoc cuts him off and formally addresses Geras. Then Havoc talks about how Geras and him are going to make so much chaos and that he should join him. But of course, Geras says no, so Havoc says that he's going to take him by force then. I wouldn't change Sector and Chameleon bickering with each other because I find it pretty endearing and interesting. We also get to hear Chameleon speak too, which is cool. For the Havoc battle that starts off with Liu Kang, Raiden, and Kung Lao fighting together, I would have the first part of it end with Raiden and Kung Lao getting knocked out or two beaten up to help Liu Kang. Then for the second part, I would have Havoc and Liu Kang using more of their Titan magic, so it seems more reasonable that Liu Kang would get beaten here rather than just getting beaten by hand-to-hand combat. He also wouldn't just be laying down off to the side. There would be a scene of him desperately trying to get up, but he physically can't. I'm not sure if I should change Empress Melina to be less harsh on Sector or not, but either way, it doesn't really matter to the story that much, so I'll leave it the same. For another Titan Havoc monologue, it would make more sense if he were to monologue with Geras rather than Bi-han, because Bi-han wasn't even intended to be a part of his plan, he just kind of showed up. We could still have Bi-han there listening to the conversation. Maybe he speaks up a couple of times to demand for answers or freedom. Havoc won't pay him much mind because he views him as insignificant, since he's just a nice guy and he probably has a lot of those already. But he will talk to him for a bit and say that he's going to turn him into something much better. Then the needles come out, and maybe there can be some kind of visual of Bi-han turning into Noob Saibot. It could be even something as simple as seeing his shadow silhouette change. I'm also not touching the whole Kamidogo MacGuffin because I wouldn't know what to do with that. Then, for the rescue team, we'll have Kuai Liang, Sector, Cyrax, and finally, Smoke. When Liu Kang announces the team, Kuai Liang is against it, and Liu Kang gives his reasons, but it's ultimately Tomas who fully convinces him to go along with the team. When Kuai Liang states that saving Bi-Han is a second priority, if it doesn't cause any issues with the meeting, Tomas could give Kuai Liang a slightly concerned look. I feel like even though Bi-Han betrayed them and killed their fathers, although the true reason why is unknown at the moment, Tomas still cares for Bi-Han, not like in a brotherly way anymore, but like how somebody would care for a random stranger. With the team in Chaos Town, I'll keep the introduction to World War II Johnny Cage the same, except for what he says to Sector when they free him. I feel like he'd be more focused on the fact that they're a literal robot than that they're hot, considering the fact that he's from 1939 to 1945. You can still compliment them afterwards, though. Something that I find really interesting is when World War II Johnny Cage talks about how he realized he's basically replaceable because there are thousands, if not millions, of Johnny Cages that exist across timelines. I'm surprised the writers didn't go more depth about this. I will later. Everything will also be the same up until Havoc's tournament. I also found it interesting how he was talking about Kronika and how the writers didn't go more in depth towards this. I will bring this up later as well because it relates to a possible ending option to this DLC. And now would be a good time to address Havoc's inhabitants' outfits, which I believe are from Melina's invasion season. A lot of people think that these costumes look ugly, and I don't blame them for thinking that. Something interesting to change is to have all the inhabitants have random costumes. I'm talking about new costumes that are still tied to the character, but also not at the same time. Like for any magic user, you could have them dress up as a magician or a cliche wizard outfit. Heck, you could have funny costumes too, like Quan Chi could be Squidward, if we lived in a world without copyright issues. Anyways, Rain said that his timeline got merged with Havoc's, so it got ruined. They didn't say if any other timelines got merged, like World War II Johnny Cage's timeline, so I'm going on the assumption that it was only Rain's that got merged. Maybe we could have World War II Cage jump in to point out that his timeline is fine. Also, Rain and Tanya's relationship is so wholesome. I can't believe I care more about their relationship than basically any other relationship in Liu Kang's timeline. Although, to be fair, the main focus of a fighting game probably shouldn't be romance. Also, the way Rain demands Havoc to come down and face them was so cool, and the delivery of that line was amazing. Skipping to the part where the main group gets split up into two, I want to change how Rain dies. Some people didn't like that he got crushed to death because he has the ability to turn into a puddle of water and could survive. That's why I'm going to keep the walls slowly crushing the group, but instead of needing to open the door, the group needs to sacrifice someone, and that someone will be Rain. Obviously, Tanya would be against this, but Rain is offering himself to be killed. Sector also agrees because it's the only way. Sector was going to kill Rain, but then Havoc says that it has to be Tanya to really make things worse. Rain and Tanya can have their tearful goodbye before Tanya kills Rain in a merciful way. The door opens so Tanya and Sector can escape. Outside of the trap, Tanya falls to her knees and starts sobbing as Sector doesn't know what to do. Also, Havoc can do his evil laugh in the background. Then it cuts back to the other group. Scorpion and Cyrax are arguing with each other. Instead of Scorpion saying that they will finish this later, they're gonna finish this feud right now, so Scorpion can stop acting like a jerk to Cyrax. When Scorpion is at the max of his anger, when Cyrax says that him and Smoke didn't tell the clan anything, Smoke steps in and defends Cyrax, saying that it was their mistake for not telling them and the other Lin Kuei anything. Then he continues on, saying that the reason why they didn't say anything was because he thought that the Lin Kuei would believe Bi-Han's word over theirs, so why bother trying to tell them anything? Cyrax is more understanding of their decision, but says that if they had told the Lin Kuei, then some of them would have believed the two of them and left the clan to join theirs. Scorpion is surprised by this as he didn't believe that the Lin Kuei would do that. Then, this is where he realizes his mistake and formally apologizes to Cyrax for not telling them anything and being a jerk to them. Tide and Havoc, seeing this wholesome reconciliation, will then butt in to make the three of them do something crazy. Since it was a bit weird that Sector, Tanya, and Rain had to face a challenge while supposedly Cyrax, Kuai Liang, and Smoke didn't have to worry about anything. Also, World War II Johnny Cage. For whatever obstacle they have to face, it isn't going to involve anyone dying again because of plot armor, and having 2 deaths might be too repetitive. The obstacle could be like anything, but what matters here is that during one part of the obstacle, World War II Johnny Cage stumbles upon a whole pile of dead Johnny Cages. And then in this moment, he completely freaks out and he starts getting PTSD. You could throw in a panic attack too in there. So then the group has to calm him down. And the way they could do that is you could have Kuai Liang and Tomas talk about how they bumped into some versions of themselves from the first game and talk about how it was so weird and it was so unsettling that there was just other versions of them and that they weren't special. But then you could throw in something how each version of them in the timeline is technically special. You have the good, you have the bad, and then you have the other group. So then that helps World War II Johnny Cage calm down and get back to his normal self. Cutting back to Sector and Tanya, the both of them are talking about Sector's goals for power. They also end up talking about Sector and Bihan's relationship because it was never really formally addressed except for that forehead touching scene at the end. This is where we find out that Sector used to be different before she got with Bihan. She thought she could fix him, but it ended up kind of backfiring without her realizing, as he ended up fixing her. Whether it was for the better or for the worse depends on your interpretation. Chaos Takeda suggests that they might fight each other, which I would make happen before they encounter the dragon. While they're avoiding all these traps, their discussion ends up evolving into an argument by Sector as they feel like Tanya is attacking their beliefs. Tanya grows concerned towards Sector and tries to mitigate their frustration, but it only makes it worse. Sector then attacks Tanya while there's still traps everywhere, so the fight is a mix of actual fighting, but then also dodging traps. The fight ends with Tanya winning, since it is her chapter, and she decides to forgive, but not forget, Sector's actions since they have more matters to attend to. In the Dragon Slayer, I wouldn't change anything because this part was pretty cool. The scene with Tanya and the dragon talking to each other was so cinematic. And with the lighting, it illustrated the details of the character models really well. Also, before they left, Tanya promised to come back, but we never saw that, so I'm not sure if she ever did or not, so I'll address this later. Also, I would change Havoc's angry reaction to the opposite of that. Maybe he isn't super happy, but he could be amused and see this as a fun challenge. Noob Saibot time! Whoa! The line, baptizing me in chaos, is so cool. I just had to say that. Skipping again to Kuai Liang arguing with another person again, this time Sector, about leaving Bihan to die. Instead of the argument ending with no clear winning opinion, Smoke butts in to side with Sector with the argument that even though Bihan was a terrible person, he's better off being cured than not, as they don't know how powerful he is as Noob Saibot, and they don't even know if he can be killed or not. Scorpion will comply again, but he makes it clear that his intentions are solely based on logic and not emotion. I would also change the direction of his emotion, less towards anger and a bit more to still being hurt that his own brother betrayed him. But he's still mad, of course, because he killed his father. When Noob and Kuai Liang are fighting, I'm adding Smoke into the mix because the fight was the battle of brothers. Smoke deserves to be in that battle. Kuai Liang and Bihan argue about him killing their dad, and this is where Bihan tells the truth that their father treated him specifically horribly, but Kuai Liang doesn't believe him because he's in chaos mode right now. Smoke is surprised, but he doesn't know whether to believe him or not, so for now, he sides with Kuai Liang and argues with Bi-Han as well. Now, what I'm gonna do might either fix or break the power scaling. If Noob was able to beat Titan Havoc in the end, and yet lose to Tanya, maybe Tanya should have lost the battle. I also changed something else, but that'll be in the end. During the fight as Tanya, you expect it to be as difficult as the other battles, but for some reason, this one is tough. No matter what you do, you will lose this battle. It could be like a cool twist or something. Noob has the advantage and is about to kill Tanya when out of nowhere, the Earth Realm team is here and swoops in to save the day. We have Johnny Cage, Kenshi, Kung Lao, Raiden, Saidas, and Ashura. And now with more people, they're able to defeat Noob. I like this change personally because it adds more justification as to why the Earthrealm team were the only ones to show up in the end rather than with the Outworld team. We can also have some nice interactions, like an early World War II Johnny Cage meeting the regular one. OG Johnny Cage could ask World War II Johnny Cage if he's from a movie to make a reference, and then World War II Johnny Cage can be shocked that people are making movies out of a tragic war. We could have Raiden apologizing again to Kuai Liang for ruining his wedding, and maybe even Ashura could use her Chris to detect at least some amount of good in Bi-Han. Even if it's a tiny bit, any amount will do. Although, there is one problem I have in justifying this. How did they get here? The only reason that makes sense is Liu Kang created a portal, but then how did he know to create a portal right where the rescue team was at? And why didn't he just teleport the rescue team right there? Also, I'm not sure if making portals into other realms are within his abilities, especially since he gave up some of his powers in the last game. The only reason that barely justifies this plot is that Liu Kang made the journey to rescue Geras plus Bi-Han long so the rescue team could have character development. Honestly, it's kind of a weird reason, but it's the best one I could come up with, unless I'm forgetting about something. When Geras gets rescued, I think he should seem a lot more exhausted and weak. This is just a tiny nitpick, but he gets up fairly quickly after getting his essence extracted out of him for who knows how long. I know he can heal, but this is weird timeline stuff, in contrast to him just getting his head cut off or something. Once again, Havoc isn't mad that his plan is being ruined, he's just amused or happy that things are going to get more messier and chaotic. When Noob was talking about how he should have been stronger and how Havoc invaded his mind, I felt so bad for him, and I was for sure confident he was gonna get his reputation. Boy, was I wrong. Don't worry though, Bi-Han is getting the redemption that he deserves. When Liu Kang, Sector, Bi-Han, and Kuai Liang step outside, instead of seeing everyone else already defeated, they will see them fighting but being overwhelmed by Havoc's minions. Also, Earthrealm team is still here. When Havoc is ranting about what Liu Kang's timeline's inhabitants have done, he starts off as angry, but then when he talks about how chaotic they've been, his tone changes to a happy one because he is so in love with chaos. Then Bi-Han and Liu Kang can call him a weirdo or something. I love Bi-Han being angry with Kuai Liang. It's so funny, so I've got to keep it in. To have some fun sibling banter between Bi-Han and Kuai Liang, when Bi-Han is about to face his chaotic and uglier version of himself, Kuai Liang could make a comment that the chaotic Bi-Han still looks better, and then Bi-Han can shove him away. And then when Bi-Han gets defeated, Kuai Liang smugly asks if he needs help. Bi-Han doesn't really answer because his ego is just so big, so Kuai Liang just takes his silence as a yes. Extending this fight scene and cutting Kuai Liang complaining about Bi-Han killing their chaotic versions, Bi-Han moves further into the battleground, where this time he has to team up with Tomas, aka the brother he hates the most. Also, Bi-Han gets stronger as each fight, story-wise, not gameplay-wise, goes on as he's getting used to his powers. Bi-Han will act pretty nasty at first, but then he needs help, and instead of being smug like Kuai Liang, Tomas will just be really nice about it, because he's just that nice. Then, this fight scene ends with all three brothers fighting together, and it's so cool and wholesome because finally the three of them can get along for the most part and have a cool sibling moment. At the end, they also have a chat. Kuai Liang is still hurt that Bi-Han killed their father and also teamed up with Shang Tsung and betrayed them. Smoke is kind of hurt, but he's willing to forgive Bi-Han after they work together. Bi-Han then gets to explain himself. He didn't know about Shang Tsung's experiments and the whole timeline stuff. He just wanted what he thought was best for the Lin Kuei, but he was wrong. He got carried away in the moment and didn't realize the harm he caused to his brothers after betraying him. And then he makes it clear that he wasn't lying about his father being a terrible person. Of course, what he's saying isn't meant to be an excuse for every bad action he's done, like giving Kuai Liang his scar, but it's just meant for context. Smoke and Kuai Liang are shocked that what he's saying is true because their father treated the both of them pretty well. They ask why he didn't tell them, and Bi-Han explains that they and no other Lin Kuei member would have believed him or took his claim seriously. To end off the scene before Liu Kang comes in, Kuai Liang says that it'll be hard to forgive Bi-Han for his actions, but he'll try to, or something like that. Bi-Han feels a lot better about his romantic relationship with his brothers. Let's celebrate! Then Liu Kang and everyone else comes in and says that they've interrogated one of the minions and found out where Havoc currently is. Sector is there, and they notice that Bi-Han is a lot closer with his brothers now, and they start to get a bit worried / skeptical that Bi-Han might be straying away from his old Lin Kuei views. Then we get the awesome Avengers cinematic entrance with the whole group. Name a more dynamic team. You probably could. Aoki, Bi-Han, and Liu Kang's back-to-back conversation is pretty good, and I think it'll lead well into Bi-Han amending his relationship with Liu Kang as well. Before, Liu Kang was conflicted on whether or not Bi-Han could change since he's been bad for so long. But after seeing him interact with his brothers, he has hope. When Liu Kang does his cool God stuff and says, "One does not trifle with gods," it kind of felt like he was passively warning about Bi-Han not messing with him, so I'll tweak his quote a bit. Instead, he'll say, "One does not trifle with gods and their inhabitants," so that way Bi-Han definitely knows that Liu Kang cares about him and doesn't see him as a lost cause like Shang Tsung or Quan Chi. While Bi-Han is appreciative of that comment, he still pushes Liu Kang out of the way and says that he doesn't need him. Bi-Han is holding his ground fairly good, but he is struggling a bit, so Liu Kang ends up helping him. Bi-Han is about to yell at Liu Kang for helping him, but Liu Kang butts in and says that Bi-Han already sacrificed himself when he jumped in that portal, so it's time that his god returns the favor. Bi-Han grumbles to himself but doesn't argue back directly. It's here. The Havoc final battle. This is where I have two different possible outcomes in the battle. I'll start with the one that I like the least. Liu Kang and the others have circled in on Havoc, and Liu Kang shames Havoc for being a cruel titan and messing with other timelines. Havoc laughs evilly before he reveals that during the Titan Pyramid battle and all the invasion seasons where Liu Kang and others kill the Titans, when a Titan dies, their timeline is destroyed. Liu Kang is mortified by this as he didn't know. Havoc then goes on and says that Liu Kang is just as bad as him and Kronika, as every timeline has good in it, and by killing a Titan, people's innocent lives are destroyed. Someone, maybe Raiden or Cyrax, asks what to do now, and Liu Kang just doesn't know. Tanya and World War II Johnny Cage can say that they know that Titan Havoc's timeline has people like them still in there, so they'll die if they kill Havoc. Also, Tanya still has to save her dragon. Bi-Han doesn't get why people are hesitant on this, as he wants nothing more than to kill Havoc. He asks Liu Kang for help, since it would be impossible for Bi-Han to defeat Havoc all by himself, but Liu Kang refuses. This causes an argument to blow out with quiet Liu Kang and Bi-Han. Then they fight for a bit. Sector comes in to help Bi-Han. Havoc's watching all of this go down, and this is where he does the creepy thing of ripping all his limbs off and having them grow into little Havoc clones. The arguing is cut off as everyone has to deal with fighting the clones except for Bi-Han as he runs straight for Havoc. Liu Kang tackles him to the ground and says that they can't kill Havoc for the survival of the timelines he's merged with his own. Bi-Han doesn't care, but it ends up being Smoke and Kuai Liang that convince him to not kill Havoc. Liu Kang and Bi-Han do reach an argument to keep Havoc alive, but to heavily weaken him. Sector doesn't really think it's a good idea, but Bi-Han doesn't care and dismisses them. The fight happens with Liu Kang and Bi-Han working together, which does add up in terms of power scaling, as it's a Titan plus extra person versus a Titan. In the end, both of them defeat Havoc. He's completely bruised and out cold. Geras could also freeze Havoc in place, so he can't move, and so his clones can't form. Everyone's doing pretty well now, and Liu Kang asks Bi-Han an important question. Does he want to stay with him in order to properly heal and be set back onto a righteous path, or does he want to return to the Lin Kuei in the state he is in? This is a tough question for Bi-Han. He thinks about it and decides that he needs Liu Kang's help, and it's time that he puts his ego off to the side. Sector is completely baffled by this and comes to the conclusion that Liu Kang brainwashed him or something, because he's acting completely different from how he acted before he got healed by Liu Kang. Sector is about to attack Liu Kang when Bi-Han stops them and orders them to stand down as their Grand Master. Sector does so begrudgingly, and then Liu Kang can say that with Bi-Han temporarily gone, Sector will be the new Grand Master for now, and that any Lin Kuei action will have them taking full responsibility. While Sector is kind of happy to be in charge, they're definitely not happy about Bi-Han turning the other cheek. Now time for the second ending, where Havoc doesn't say that crazy reveal, in case it isn't canon. With no crazy reveal, Bi-Han is ready to team up with Liu Kang and kill Havoc. But Liu Kang brings up a problem. If they kill Havoc, then there's a chance that Bi-Han could die. Since he got corrupted and his soul got infused with Havoc's magic, or something like that, if they kill Havoc, then it could kill Bi-Han. This is where Bi-Han has to make a big decision. Either they keep Havoc alive, which could risk him getting loose again and wreaking chaos once again, or they kill him and Bi-Han just dies. Liu Kang is fine with either option, but he does prefer keeping Bi-Han alive. Same with the others. The only person who is strongly against this is Sector, because they obviously don't want to lose their partner and Grand Master. But nobody's opinion matters, as it's Bi-Han who has to make the choice. In the end, after some time of thinking, Bi-Han is willing to step up and risk his life to kill Havoc. Liu Kang and Bi-Han team up to kill Havoc, and they do it. Huzzah! But after Havoc is dead and turns into sand, or something like that, Bi-Han falls to the ground and isn't responding to anyone. Sector completely flips out and is devastated that Bi-Han is dead. They lash out and claim that Liu Kang knew for sure that he was gonna die and that he wanted this to happen. Liu Kang tries to assure them that it was Bi-Han's choice to do this, but Sector doesn't listen and is ready to attack him when Bi-Han moves. It turns out that he's not dead, but he's just really weak, so he can barely do anything. Everyone is shocked and happy that Bi-Han isn't dead. Sector stands down from attacking Liu Kang, but gives him a nasty glare. Bi-Han makes the same decision to stay with Liu Kang as the previous Assault ending, but this time Sector is a lot more against this decision. They still think that Liu Kang brainwashed him or something, and they try to plead to Bi-Han to come back to the clan, but he says no, and that they'll have to be the temporary Grandmaster until he gets better, because he is in no way in the right condition to be leading the clan. Sector tries to hide their bitter anger as they walk into the portal to return to the Lin Kuei. Then it cuts later for both endings, and Havoc is in some kind of timeline prison made by Geras, and he'll probably stay there forever or until Geras/Liu Kang can find a way to kill a Titan without destroying a timeline. Or for the second ending, Havoc is just dead. Bi-Han and Liu Kang are chilling together, doing whatever they have to do to heal Bi-Han. Both of them are doing alright, but if it's the first version of the battle, Liu Kang can't help but feel haunted by his actions of accidentally murdering timelines. Cyrax, Kuai Liang, and Tomas are chilling together. Cyrax gets to join the Shirai Ryu, and they have plans with Bi-Han to form an alliance between the two clans once he gets better and is back in charge. Tanya and World War II Johnny Cage are going on a mission to help the innocent people from Havoc's timeline escape. Also, since Tanya doesn't have a timeline anymore, maybe she could work with Geras, or maybe she can go to another Titan's timeline, like Titan Katana's. Everyone's happy, huzzah! Except for Sector, who is sulking on the Grandmaster's throne. They're heavily unsatisfied with Bi-Han's change of heart, and while they don't officially break up, they're pretty much broken up. Out of nowhere, Quan Chi and Shang Tsung appear, and they ask Sector to acquire Shinnok's amulet. Dun, dun, dun. Sector, of course, says yes, and they're evil. Oh no. Now, time for the arcade endings. Sector's ending. Having a tight alliance with Quan Chi and Shang Tsung, and ruling with an iron fist over the Lin Kuei. They've come up with plans to turn everyone in the Lin Kuei into complete robots, whether it be by choice or by force. Their main goal, however, is to track down both Cyrax and Bi-Han to turn them into robots that will follow their every command. Cyrax's ending. Recently, the Shirai Ryu have been getting a lot of Lin Kuei members who are wishing to transfer to their clan. The reason why is that Sector has begun their plan of turning the whole clan into robots, while Tomas, Kuai Liang, Harumi, and Cyrax are welcoming and compassionate towards the Lin Kuei members. The Shirai Ryu members aren't treating them the same, so Cyrax has to step in and help the new Lin Kuei members out. Also, Cyrax is planning on going on a solo mission to find and stop Sector from further enacting their plan. Bi-Han's ending. He's made a fairly decent recovery and is working on learning what his new shadow powers can do. Ooh! His brothers have made him aware that Sector is beginning their cyber initiative of his Lin Kuei without his permission, and that they're working with Shang Tsung and Quan Chi. Filled with anger towards Sector for going against his orders and betraying him, he plans on reclaiming his Grandmaster's throne once he grows stronger. And that's it. That's how the MK1 DLC would have gone if I wrote the script for it. While it's not perfect in terms of some new additions that don't make as much sense, I personally like this rewrite, although I'm probably biased since it was my rewrite, but it's alright. I remember before watching the MK1 DLC story mode on YouTube, I didn't pay for the game, I was hyped to watch it because Bihan is my favorite character from the MK1 story mode, and I was so excited for the DLC to go in depth in his character and for him to get redeemed, obviously. I even wrote down my thoughts while watching the story mode for the first time. Anyways, while the DLC was kind of a disappointment, I'm still interested in following their story and seeing what they do next. I hope that NRS will learn from their mistakes and make a better DLC next time. And who knows, maybe there's a chance of Bihan getting a redemption arc. One could only hope. Well, this video's getting a little bit too long. I'm not sure if I'll ever make any more Mortal Kombat content. Maybe I could review the first game's story mode and possibly do something like a tier list. Anyways, I hope that you enjoy this video and have a good week. Bye!